Could there be someone out there who needs me without my knowing? Elon Musk wondered, standing on the edge of an endless shoreline. Gentle waves lapped at his feet, and the sea breeze brushed his face, carrying the ocean's chill. Despite standing atop the pinnacle of success and fame, he felt a profound emptiness deep within, as though there was something that even the vast universe had yet to offer him. Quiet moments like these always stirred introspection in Elon, gazing into the immensity of the ocean and questioning whether he was missing something truly important. On a serene afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, its amber light stretched across the water, mirroring the universe's ethereal hues. Elon stood there, feeling each breath merge with the brisk sea air. He felt small, like a nameless grain of sand amidst the infinite flow of space and time. Closing his eyes, he whispered, no louder than a breath, "Is there anyone out there who can hear me?" Silence answered him, but it wasn't an empty silence. As a man of reason rooted in science and evidence, Elon didn't expect miracles or answers from a supernatural realm. Yet, deep inside, a quiet yearning lingered, a yearning for something beyond numbers and theories. And then he felt it. It wasn't a voice or an external touch, but something rising from deep within, a warmth, a peace, and a profound strength. It was as if the very air around him had changed, as if the ocean itself was speaking to him in a faint whisper. "I have always been here." Elon's eyes snapped open, his breath caught. He wasn't sure if it was real or just an illusion, but he knew one thing: this moment, unlike anything he had ever experienced, would be etched into him forever. Elon couldn't shake the strange feeling that had clung to him since that evening by the sea. In the days that followed, the imagery and emotions of that moment swirled in his mind like an unanswered question. What was it? A true presence, or simply his mind playing tricks against the vast backdrop of the ocean? He tried to dismiss it, but that only amplified the unease. Finally, he decided he had to explore it further. Elon wasn't accustomed to sharing personal matters, especially those he himself couldn't fully grasp. But this time he felt compelled to speak. He called an old friend, Daniel, someone he knew to have a deep sense of faith, and who often spoke about life's meaning. They arranged to meet at a small cafe, where the warm light and gentle music created a relaxed atmosphere. Elon arrived early, sitting quietly as he watched people pass by the window. When Daniel walked in, his sincere smile brought Elon a small measure of relief. After some casual conversation, Elon hesitated, his gaze falling to the cup of coffee in front of him, as though searching for words at its bottom. Finally, he looked up and asked, his voice slightly trembling, "Daniel, have you ever felt something you couldn't explain? Something greater than everything we know?" Daniel tilted his head, his eyes bright with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Elon took a deep breath, feeling as though he was stepping into uncharted waters. "Do you believe in God?" Daniel leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Yes, I do. But belief is a deeply personal journey, Elon. It's not always straightforward." The response plunged Elon into thought. "But I'm not that kind of person," he admitted. "I'm not seeking God. I've never even thought about him before. So why am I feeling this?" His friend smiled a knowing, understanding smile. Sometimes it's the people who aren't looking who God chooses to reach out to. He knows the time and the way to touch each person. Maybe you weren't actively searching, but in some way, you were ready without even realizing it. Elon frowned. Ready? Ready for what? I've achieved everything I wanted: success, fame, wealth. Yet that feeling won't go away. There's always this void, like a hole nothing can fill. Daniel placed his hand on the table, leaning slightly forward. Perhaps you've achieved everything you thought you wanted, but not what you truly need. Have you ever asked yourself what really matters to you? Not for your work or the world, but for your own soul. Elon fell silent, the question echoing in his mind. What truly mattered? He had spent his life building, creating and conquering great heights. But when the night fell and the world drifted into slumber, he often found himself alone with his thoughts. "What do you think I should do?" he asked, his eyes revealing a mixture of confusion and exhaustion. His friend looked at him, his gaze gentle yet firm. Listen to that voice, Elon. Let yourself be open and explore it. This might be an opportunity for you to discover a part of life you've always overlooked. There's no need to rush or to understand everything right away. Just begin by accepting that there are things greater than yourself, and they might bring you the peace you've always longed for. Elon nodded, his heart sinking into a mix of curiosity and apprehension. He didn't know if he could believe in this, but one thing he was certain of: this conversation had sparked an idea within him, a path he had never considered before. A shiver ran down Elon's spine. Could that be what had happened? Had he been searching all along without even realizing it? The thought was both comforting and unsettling. His entire life had been spent seeking answers through science, yet now he found himself drawn to something greater, something he could not explain. Elon couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's words. The idea that God had reached out to him, a man so grounded in logic and reason, was hard to accept. But deep down, he knew something very real had happened that day by the sea. It wasn't a dream, nor was it a mere coincidence. Days turned into weeks, and Elon spent more time in quiet reflection. He often sat in his garden late at night, gazing at the starry sky, and wondering if a higher power was watching over him. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that the universe was too vast, too intricate to be a mere accident. There had to be a creator, a force that gave meaning to everything. One night, as he sat alone under the stars, he felt that presence again. This time it was stronger, more comforting. He didn't hear words, but he didn't need to. The feeling was enough. It was as if God was reminding him, "I am here. I am with you." Tears welled up in Elon's eyes. For so long he had felt disconnected from the world around him. He had achieved so much, yet none of it had filled the emptiness inside him. Now, for the first time in his life, he felt whole. He felt loved not for what he had done, but for who he was. "Thank you," he whispered into the night, not knowing if anyone could hear him. But he didn't need to know, because in his heart he believed, and that was enough. Elon's life began to change after that night under the starry sky. From the quiet, a thought began to grow in his mind, like a small flame driving away the darkness. It wasn't a voice or a clear image, but an intuition, a sense of guidance. He felt a whisper: start with what is closest. Listen to what others don't say out loud. Elon opened his eyes, feeling his heart grow lighter, as if some burden had just been lifted. He looked out the window, where the dawn was beginning to light up the treetops. In that moment, he knew what he needed to do. He needed to reconnect with people, not through technology or grand projects, but through genuine presence. That day, Elon decided to spend time observing the people around him, not as a businessman or a public figure, but simply as a fellow human being. He walked around the city, stopping by small cafes, listening to the ordinary stories of everyday lives. He realized that in these simple stories lay pain, joy, and dreams that he hadn't noticed in a long time. One afternoon, Elon stopped at a park where a group of children was playing. He sat down on a nearby bench, quietly watching. A little girl, about 6 years old, ran up to him with a tangled kite string. "Mister, can you help me?" she asked, her round eyes looking up at him with absolute trust. Elon took the kite and began untangling the knots. As he worked, he realized he wasn't just untangling the kite string, he was untangling his own soul. When the kite was finally ready to fly, the little girl beamed with joy. "Thank you, mister. You're amazing." "Nah." She ran off, leaving Elon sitting there, watching the kite soar into the sky. In that moment he realized something profound. Happiness wasn't in what he created, but in the connections he built. It was a feeling he had been searching for all along, and it was far simpler than he had ever imagined. That evening, he wrote a note in his journal: "Don't chase success. Chase meaning." That reminder became a guiding light, a new principle in his life. And so, Elon Musk's new journey began, not just to conquer the world, but to truly live fully within it. At first there was only silence, but then, from deep within, he felt the familiar presence again. This time it wasn't just comforting, it was a message. It wasn't loud or forceful, but it was clear and undeniable. "You are here for a reason," the presence said. "You have been given everything for a purpose." Elon's heart raced. What did it mean? What was his purpose? He had built companies, disrupted industries, and impacted millions of lives, yet somehow he knew the voice wasn't referring to any of that. It was something more, something beyond the material world. Elon spent the rest of the day in deep reflection. What did God want from him? Days turned into weeks, and Elon continued his quiet morning rituals, listening and waiting. The message he had received weighed heavily on his mind. Yet the more he thought, the more lost he felt. He needed guidance, but he didn't know where to look. His entire life had been built on logic and reason to solve problems, but this was different. This was a matter of the heart, of the soul. One evening, as he was leaving a long meeting, Elon paused at the entrance of the building. Outside, under the dim glow of the streetlights, he saw an elderly man hunched over on a bench. His clothes were tattered, his shoes had holes, and his eyes carried the weight of loss. Elon couldn't walk past without noticing. Without thinking, Elon approached him. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft but sincere. The man lifted his head, his sorrowful eyes reflecting a life filled with hardship. "I used to be," he murmured, his voice breaking, "but not anymore. I lost my job, my home, and I have no one left." Elon's heart tightened. He had seen poverty before, but the man's story rooted him in place. In the silence that followed, the words he had heard before echoed in his mind. "You were given what you have, not to keep it, but to share it." Elon sat down beside the man. "No one is truly alone," he said, his gaze filled with sincerity. "Let me help you." The man looked at him in surprise. "Why? You don't know me. I'm just a stranger." Elon smiled, a gentle yet determined smile. "Sometimes we don't need to know someone to help them. I believe everything happens for a reason. Maybe tonight, I'm here for this reason." The man hesitated, but the warmth in Elon's voice made it impossible to refuse. They began to talk, sharing stories of the man's hardships and the dreams that had faded with time. That night, Elon didn't just listen, he felt something hived within himself. A connection, a belief that sometimes the meaning of life is found in these small, quiet moments. As the night grew late, Elon said, "I don't want to leave it at words. I want to make sure you have a chance to start again." True to his promise, the next day, Elon arranged temporary housing and a job for the man at a charity organization he supported. In that moment, something became clear. For the first time, Elon understood a piece of the bigger picture. His purpose wasn't just about achieving what he could for himself, but about what he could give to others. It wasn't about building empires or making breakthroughs in technology. It was about using the gifts he'd been given to make the world a better place, one small act of kindness at a time. As the days continued, Elon met more people like the man he had helped. He began to see the world through a new lens, not just as a series of problems to solve, but as a place filled with people in need of love, compassion, and understanding. Have you ever stopped to think about the power we have to change someone's life? Elon wondered aloud one evening. It was a question he had never considered before, but now it seemed like the most important question in the world. Elon began acting on this newfound understanding. He started small, helping those he encountered in his daily life, listening to their stories, or offering a helping hand. The more he gave, the more fulfilled he felt. It was a feeling unlike anything he had experienced before, one that no amount of success or fame could ever provide. Friends, family, and even Elon's colleagues began to notice the change in him. He was no longer solely focused on his work. He had become more patient, more empathetic, and more engaged with the world around him. He was no longer just a man of intellect. Now, he was a man of the heart. One evening, as Elon sat reflecting on everything that had happened, he felt that presence again. "You are on the right path," it said. "Keep going." Elon knew it was time to share his journey with others. He could no longer keep this message to himself. It was too important. The world needed to know that there was more to life than what we can see or touch. He decided to speak publicly about his experiences not as a billionaire or a tech mogul, but as a human being who had found something greater than himself. The whole world listened. People had always admired Elon for his achievements, but now they saw a different side of him, a vulnerable, humble man filled with newfound faith. At a pivotal end-of-year meeting, standing before thousands of employees, he shared, "We are all here on this earth for a reason. Each of us has been given gifts, talents, opportunities, but these are not just for ourselves. They are meant to be shared, to be used for the benefit of others." Elon Musk's address at the year-end meeting was not just a message, it was a call to action, a spark igniting hope and purpose among the thousands of employees present. "We cannot measure our worth solely by personal achievements, but by how we contribute to the betterment of the world," he said, his gaze sweeping across the crowded hall. Thousands listened in silence, captivated by the sincerity and conviction in his voice. It was no longer the speech of a CEO, but a heartfelt reflection from a man deeply connected to the essence of life. "I used to think success was about conquering challenges and reaching new heights. But now I realize true success is when we use the gifts life has given us to help others find their own light." As his final words resonated through the room, it erupted in a thunderous standing ovation. The applause wasn't just for his inspiring words, it was a collective agreement among thousands of hearts finding a reason to reevaluate their own purposes. After the meeting, the story of his speech spread like wildfire. Media outlets covered it, and social media was flooded with quotes and reflections from his words. But more importantly, it sparked action. Employees began contributing more to their communities, initiating charitable projects, and helping those in need. A broader community from strangers to colleagues started connecting, inspired by Elon Musk's message. Elon, ever humble, did not seek recognition. For him, that moment was not about affirming his status, but about starting a movement, a wave of kindness and social responsibility. As he watched the positive changes begin to ripple outward, he simply smiled, thinking of the man he had met on the bench years ago. In that instant, he realized, sometimes a small moment can lead to changes far greater than anyone could have imagined.